For months, Sergeant Michael Thompson fed on a single dream, coming home to his daughter's warm embrace. He imagined little Emma running to him, her laughter filling their small house, a table set with her favorite meal. But what he discovered behind the restaurant dumpster shattered every beautiful image he had carried through the war. The sound of metal scraping against concrete echoed through the narrow alley behind Murphy's Diner. It was past midnight, and a small figure crouched beside the largest dumpster, tiny hands desperately digging through bags of rotting food scraps. Michael Thompson stood frozen at the alley's entrance, his military duffel bag dropping from his shoulder with a dull thud. The child looked up at the sound, and in the dim light he saw eyes he had kissed goodnight 2 years ago. Emma, his voice cracked like breaking glass. The 6-year-old girl froze, a piece of moldy bread clutched in her dirt-stained fingers. Her dress, once pink and cheerful, was now gray with grime and hung loose on her skeletal frame. "Daddy," she whispered, the word barely audible above the distant traffic. 2 years earlier, the Thompson house on Maple Street had been filled with morning sunshine and the smell of pancakes. Michael remembered how Emma would bounce on his knee at the breakfast table, syrup sticky on her cheeks, chattering endlessly about her kindergarten friends and the stray cat she wanted to adopt. "Promise me you'll be good for Grandma Rose," Michael had said, kneeling to Emma's eye level on that last morning. His deployment orders were folded in his chest pocket, but his daughter didn't need to understand the details. "I promise, Daddy. Will you bring me a present? The biggest present you can imagine," he had promised, not knowing that the biggest present would simply be his return. Grandma Rose had stood in the doorway, her silver hair neatly pinned, her smile warm but tired. At 73, she was taking on more than she should, but family was family. "Don't you worry about a thing, Michael. Emma and I will have grand adventures. Won't we, sweetheart?" For 18 months, the letters from home painted perfect pictures. Grandma Rose wrote about Emma's progress in school, her new friendships, her growing collection of drawings that covered the refrigerator. The photographs showed a smiling child in clean clothes, gap-toothed grins, and birthday parties with homemade cake. But then the letters stopped coming. The final letter Michael received from home wasn't from Grandma Rose's familiar handwriting. It was from Emma, written in crayon with shaky 6-year-old penmanship. "Daddy, Grandma sleeps all the time now. She doesn't make food anymore. I'm hungry. When are you coming home? Love, Emma." 3 months ago, Michael's weekly phone calls to Grandma Rose began going straight to voicemail. When he finally reached her after days of trying, her voice sounded different, weaker, confused, with words slurring together in ways that set off alarm bells in his mind. "Emma's fine, dear," she would say. But the words came slowly, as if she was having trouble forming thoughts into speech. She's at school. Yes, that's right, school." But it had been Sunday, and Emma's school didn't hold classes on weekends. Michael's fellow soldiers noticed his growing anxiety during their downtime. Staff Sergeant Williams found him staring at his phone one evening, worry lines etched deep in his forehead. "Everything all right, Thompson?" "I don't know," Michael had admitted. "Something feels off back home. My gut's telling me something's wrong, but I can't put my finger on it." Williams, a father of 3 himself, had nodded grimly. "Trust your instincts, man. A parent's intuition doesn't lie." The crayon letter from Emma was dated 6 weeks ago, but only received yesterday due to mail delays. By the time he read those innocent, heartbreaking words, Michael was already on a transport plane home, emergency leave approved. "Emma, sweetheart, what are you doing here?" Michael's voice shook as he approached his daughter slowly, as if she might bolt like a frightened animal. The little girl dropped the moldy bread and backed against the cold metal of the dumpster, her eyes wide with a mixture of hope and terror. "I was looking for dinner," she whispered, her voice so small it was almost lost in the urban sounds. "Mrs. Murphy throws away good food sometimes, sandwiches that are only a little bad." Michael's heart shattered as he realized his daughter had developed a survival system, learned to distinguish between edible garbage and truly rotten waste. He knelt in the filthy alley, not caring about his dress uniform, and opened his arms wide. "Come here, baby girl. Come to Daddy." Emma hesitated for a long moment, as if she had forgotten how to trust. Then she stumbled forward into his embrace, and Michael felt how drastically her body had changed. Her ribs showed through her torn dress. Her arms were like twigs, her hair matted and unwashed. "I missed you so much, Daddy," she sobbed against his chest. "I knew you'd come back. I knew you wouldn't forget me." "Never," Michael whispered fiercely, his own tears falling freely. "I will never forget you. You're my whole world, Emma." As he held his daughter, Michael's military training automatically assessed her condition: severe malnutrition, dehydration, possible exposure to diseases from contaminated food. But worse than her physical state was the look in her eyes, the hollow stare of a child who had learned too young that adults couldn't always be trusted. "Where's Grandma Rose?" he asked gently. Emma's face crumpled. "She got really sick. She sleeps all the time and doesn't wake up when I shake her. Sometimes she makes scary noises. I tried to make her soup, but I don't know how. The neighbors don't answer when I knock anymore. I got really hungry, so I remembered you said Murphy's has the best food in town." Michael stood up, lifting Emma with him as if she were made of spun glass. She weighed almost nothing, her tiny body trembling against his chest. The fury burning in his heart was unlike anything he had felt in combat. This wasn't about enemy soldiers or strategic objectives. This was about his child, his responsibility, his failure as a father to protect what mattered most. "Emma, listen to me," he said, his voice steady despite the storm raging inside him. "You are never going to be hungry again. You are never going to be alone again. Daddy is going to fix everything, I promise you that. But what about Grandma Rose? We're going to help Grandma Rose too. But first, we need to get you cleaned up and fed properly." "When's the last time you had a real meal, sweetheart?" Emma thought for a moment, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I think maybe when the church ladies came. But that was a long time ago. The lady with the blue hat brought soup, but she only came once." Michael's jaw tightened as he realized the community had failed his daughter too. People had seen signs and done nothing, or made token gestures before returning to their comfortable lives. "We're going to go to a hotel tonight," Michael decided. "Tomorrow we start making things right. I'm going to find out exactly what happened, and I'm going to make sure nothing like this ever happens again." Emma nodded against his shoulder, but then asked the question that hit him like a physical blow. "Are you going to leave me again, Daddy?" The simple honesty of her words nearly brought Michael to his knees. "No, baby," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I am never leaving you again. Whatever it takes, wherever we have to go, we are staying together. That's a promise, and Daddy always keeps his promises." As they walked out of the alley, Emma clinging to his neck, Michael's mind was already working through the logistics. Emergency custody paperwork, medical evaluations, investigation into how every system designed to protect children had failed his daughter so spectacularly. But underneath the practical concerns, a deeper transformation was taking place. The soldier was becoming something fiercer, something more dangerous. He was becoming a father with nothing left to lose. The next morning, after Emma had been fed, bathed, and examined by a doctor, Michael began his investigation. His first stop was Grandma Rose's house. The sight made his stomach turn. The elderly woman lay unconscious, surrounded by empty pill bottles and neglect. Michael called 911 immediately. As paramedics worked to stabilize Grandma Rose, neighbor Mrs. Patterson finally spoke up. "I wondered about the little girl. I hadn't seen her playing lately. She knocked on my door asking for food 3 weeks ago. I gave her crackers and told her to ask her grandmother." At Emma's school, Principal Martinez shuffled through files uncomfortably. "Emma stopped attending regularly about 6 weeks ago. We contacted Child Protective Services after 2 weeks of unexplained absences. Did anyone check on her? They said they visited and everything appeared normal." Mrs. Rose explained Emma was suffering from anxiety and they were doing homeschooling. It was a lie. CPS had either never visited or been fooled completely. Either way, the system designed to protect children like Emma had failed spectacularly. The bureaucratic maze that followed was more frustrating than any military operation Michael had ever undertaken. Social services claimed they had no record of the initial complaint from Emma's school. The caseworker assigned to investigate Grandma Rose's condition was on vacation and wouldn't return for 2 weeks. Emergency custody hearings were scheduled a month away due to court backlogs. "I understand your frustration, Mr. Thompson," said Linda Chen, the family court coordinator, her voice carrying the practiced neutrality of someone who had delivered disappointing news to desperate families countless times. "But the system has established procedures that exist to protect everyone involved. We simply cannot rush these cases through without proper documentation. My 6-year-old daughter was eating garbage to survive, Michael said slowly. His hands clenched so tightly in his lap that his knuckles had turned white. While your procedures were being carefully followed, my child was digging through restaurant dumpsters like a stray animal. Miss Chen's expression remained professionally neutral. Temporary emergency custody is extremely difficult to obtain without clear evidence of immediate physical danger. Your daughter is safe with you now, and Mrs. Rose is receiving appropriate medical care. The court will want to explore all possible options for family reunification. Family reunification? Michael's voice rose despite his efforts to stay calm. The woman who was supposed to care for my daughter allowed her to starve while she remained unconscious from prescription drug abuse. Sir, I'm going to need you to control your emotional responses, Miss Chen replied coldly. The court system operates on documented facts and legal precedents, not on emotional appeals. We need comprehensive medical reports, psychological evaluations, detailed home studies. These thorough evaluations take time to complete properly. Time. The one thing Emma couldn't afford to lose while bureaucrats shuffled paperwork and scheduled meetings. Michael left the courthouse feeling more frustrated and powerless than when he had arrived. Staff Sergeant Jake Williams arrived the next afternoon with Corporal Maria Santos, now a private investigator. You look like hell, Thompson, Williams said, pulling Michael into a hug. But the kid looks better. Emma peeked out shyly as Michael introduced them as Uncle Jake and Aunt Maria. In the bathroom, Santos pulled out her notebook. The situation is worse than you thought. Grandma Rose has been struggling with prescription drug dependency for 8 months. The neighbors knew but assumed family services were handling it. What about CPS? The case was assigned to Dennis Harper, who's under investigation for falsifying reports. He never visited your mother-in-law's house, just filed paperwork saying he did. Williams added, there's a woman named Carol Murphy who owns the diner. She's been leaving food scraps in clean containers, trying to keep anything Emma found safe to eat. She called police twice, but was told without seeing actual abuse, there wasn't much they could do. Santos flipped a page. But here's what doesn't make sense. Emma wasn't just looking for food. She was carrying small packages, moving them between locations, always at night, staying in shadows. Michael felt ice in his stomach. You think someone was using her. Desperate kids make good couriers. They're invisible to police, don't ask questions, and if caught, too young for serious charges. Someone saw Emma's situation and took advantage. At 11:30 p.m., Michael crouched behind a parked car across from Murphy's diner, connected to Williams and Santos by earpieces. Emma was safe at the hotel with a retired police officer babysitter. Movement, Santos's voice crackled. 2 subjects approaching. Michael saw them, a man in expensive sneakers and designer jacket, with a nervous teenager. Where is she? The older man asked. His voice carried authority, someone used to being obeyed. I don't know, Rico. She always shows up around midnight. Rico checked an expensive watch. That little rat has been very useful. Never asks questions, never gets caught. Always delivers on time. If she's found another employer, that's a problem. Michael's blood turned to ice. They were talking about Emma like an employee. What if she's sick or dead? Rico shrugged with chilling indifference. Then we find another one. Hungry kids aren't rare, but this one was special, invisible, reliable, desperate enough to do anything for a meal. How much product did she move? Over 3 months, maybe $30,000 worth. The beauty of using kids this young is they think they're playing games. Take this package to the blue mailbox. Here's a sandwich. Simple. Michael's hands shook with rage. For 3 months, while he worried about his daughter overseas, she had been unwittingly working as a drug courier. What if her family came back? Rico's expression darkened. Then we have a problem. Kids who disappear sometimes tell stories. We can't have that. Through the earpiece, Williams warned. Thompson, don't do anything stupid. But Michael was already moving. We need to find the kid, Rico continued. If she's back with family, we need to ensure their silence, permanently, if necessary. Michael stepped out of the shadows. Looking for someone? Both men spun around, the teenager reaching for a weapon while Rico held his ground. I'm Emma's father, Michael said quietly, his voice carrying more menace than any shout. And you've made the biggest mistake of your life. Rico's expression shifted to calculation. Daddy's home from war. Your little girl has been working for me. She owes me money for services rendered. You mean forcing a starving 6-year-old to carry drugs? I prefer providing employment opportunities. She was profitable. If you want to buy out her contract, we can discuss terms. The teenager pulled a gun with shaking hands while Rico drew his own weapon with professional steadiness. You're outnumbered, soldier boy. This is my neighborhood, my business, my rules. Your rules don't apply to my daughter. Actually, they do. Your daughter knows our routes, procedures, clients. That makes her a liability. Normally, we'd handle this quietly. Maybe an overdose, tragic accident. But since you're here, we can negotiate. $50,000, and we forget your kid existed. And if I don't pay? Rico's smile turned predatory. Then we take it out in trade. Your daughter was good at carrying packages. We have clients who pay premium rates for specialized couriers. Young ones, clean ones. The threat dissolved Michael's remaining control. He moved. 20 years of combat training compressed into 3 seconds of devastating violence. The teenager's gun went flying as Michael's elbow connected with his wrist. Rico raised his weapon, but Michael was inside his guard, controlling the gun while driving into Rico's throat. Williams and Santos secured both criminals as they hit the ground. Rico spat blood and glared up at Michael. You have no idea what you've done. We have people everywhere. Police, judges, social workers. Your kid will never be safe. Michael knelt beside Rico, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried more threat than any scream. Then I guess I'll have to make sure you never get the chance. The next 48 hours blurred through police stations and federal agents. Rico and his associate were in custody, but their threats proved real. Agent Sarah Mitchell from the DEA laid out the situation grimly. Ricardo Vega was mid-level in a network stretching from Mexico to Canada. Using children as unknowing couriers was just one part of their operation. They also traffic humans, weapons, and political corruption. What does that mean for Emma? She's a witness to federal crimes. 3 months of courier work means she can identify locations, faces, procedures. That makes her valuable to us and dangerous to them. How dangerous? We've identified 6 other children who worked similar routes. 3 disappeared in the past year. 1 was found dead, officially an overdose. 2 vanished completely. Michael felt the room tilt. You're telling me my daughter is marked for assassination because she was forced to deliver drugs while starving? We're prepared to offer federal witness protection for both of you. New identities, new lives, never seeing friends or family again. It's the safest option. This organization kills children to protect operations. Emma fits their victim profile perfectly. That night, Michael's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We know where you are. We know where she goes to school. This doesn't end until we say it ends. At 3 a.m., Michael stood on the hotel balcony, staring at a city that had become a battlefield. Emma slept peacefully inside, exhausted from police interviews. He was a soldier, not just by profession, but by training and instinct. For 20 years, he had faced impossible odds and completed the mission. But this was different. This was about his daughter's life, and the enemy were predators who used children as weapons. If he accepted witness protection, Emma would grow up in hiding, always looking over her shoulder, never able to trust that tomorrow would be safe. If he refused and tried to live normally, they would be targets until the network eliminated them. But there was a third option, one his military training had prepared him for. Michael could eliminate the threat permanently, not through legal channels, but through direct action. Find the key figures, neutralize their ability to harm Emma, ensure they could never threaten another child. It would be murder, premeditated and outside the law. But it would make Emma safe in a way no government program could guarantee. A father's love was transforming inside him, hardening from protective instinct into something colder and more purposeful. Emma would grow up free, safe, and happy. The people who had used her would never harm another child. Michael Thompson was going to war. The next morning, Michael sat across from Agent Mitchell. I need more information about the network structure, key personnel, operational procedures. That's classified intelligence. I'm asking as a soldier with security clearance and need to know. Agent Mitchell opened a thick folder. The network is run by Carlos Mendoza, El Jefe. He operates from a compound in the industrial district, surrounded by legitimate businesses for cover. She showed surveillance photos of a middle-aged man in expensive suits, always surrounded by bodyguards. Mendoza is smart, cautious, ruthless. He survived 3 DEA investigations and 2 cartel assassination attempts. That afternoon, Michael made calls to former military colleagues in private security, men who understood some problems couldn't be solved through official channels. Williams arrived first, followed by Santos and 2 others. Specialist David Kim, electronics expert, and Master Sergeant Robert Cruz, legendary sniper. Before we continue, Williams said, "Everyone understands this isn't sanctioned military operation. We're private citizens taking illegal action against criminal targets." "Illegal action to protect an innocent child," Santos corrected. Kim spread building schematics. Mendoza's compound. Converted warehouse surrounded by legitimate businesses. Heavy security, but not military grade. Mendoza meets with captains every Thursday at 8 p.m. Santos checked her notes. Security is lighter during meetings. If we hit during the meeting, eliminate entire leadership in one operation, Kim finished. Cruz nodded. Clean, efficient, militarily sound. But crossing that line means no going back, and heroes to every parent whose child these animals destroyed, Michael said quietly. Williams stood and extended his hand. "Semper Fi, brother. We don't leave family behind." One by one, they shook Michael's hand. They were soldiers again, united by mission and loyalty. 6 months later, Michael pushed Emma on a swing in Riverside Park, her laughter echoing like music. She had grown taller, her cheeks filled out, her eyes bright with safe curiosity. "Higher, Daddy, higher. Hold on tight, sweetheart," Michael called, giving another gentle push. The official story was simple. Joint DEA-FBI operation resulted in arrests of key Mendoza organization figures, leading to network collapse. Carlos Mendoza and top lieutenants were found dead in internal violence, typical of destabilizing criminal organizations. The unofficial story was known only to 5 former soldiers who had spent one Thursday evening demonstrating that some threats required permanent solutions. Emma didn't know any of it. She knew Daddy came home from the army, Grandma Rose was getting better in a special hospital, and they lived in a nice apartment where she had her own room and never went to bed hungry. "Daddy, look," Emma pointed to a butterfly on the swing chain. "It's so pretty." Michael smiled, watching his daughters wonder at simple beauty. This was what they had fought for, the right of one small girl to marvel at butterflies without fear. That evening, as Emma worked on homework, Michael received a text from Williams. "Package delivered. Client satisfied. Service complete." Michael deleted the message and returned to helping with math homework. Addition and subtraction, simple problems with clear answers. "Daddy," Emma said, looking up, "are you happy we live here?" Michael looked around their apartment, clean, safe, filled with Emma's drawings and toys. Through the window, normal families living normal lives, children playing without fear. "Yes, sweetheart, I'm very happy we live here." "Good. I like it when you're happy." As Michael tucked Emma into bed, she looked up with absolute trust. "Daddy, will you always keep me safe?" Michael thought of choices made, lines crossed, prices paid to make this moment possible. His daughter was alive, healthy, and free because 5 soldiers decided some battles couldn't be won through legal channels. "Always," he promised, kissing her forehead. "No matter what it takes." Emma smiled and closed her eyes, drifting off secure in knowledge that her father's promises were unbreakable. Outside, the city continued its cycle of light and shadow, crime and punishment. But in one small apartment, father and daughter had found peace that didn't come through legal means. Michael Thompson had returned from the army to find his daughter eating from trash. Now she slept safely in her own bed, dreaming of butterflies, protected by a father's love that proved stronger than law, morality, or fear. The war was over. Emma had won. What do we see beyond this story? We see that love can become the most dangerous force when protecting innocence. We see that sometimes systems fail so completely that justice must come from unexpected sources. We see that a father's love has 2 faces, the gentle hand that pushes a swing, and the iron fist that eliminates threats. Most importantly, we see that some promises are worth any sacrifice to keep, and some victories can only be measured in a child's laughter, free from fear.